The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local community-centered journalism today by signing up to be a monthly sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate. It doesn't take much money to support local news.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. On Friday, federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was in Nanaimo as part of a tour of Vancouver Island. He visited the CHLY studio alongside Nanaimo-Ladysmith MP Lisa Marie Barron for a conversation touching on pharmacare, Barron's recent motion on electoral reform, Harewood Plains, and the next federal election. Jagmeet Singh, what brings you to Nanaimo?
I'm here to talk to the people. I want to hear from them. I want to hear about the island. Jack Layton used to always say this, and it's very true for New Democrats. We want to build a Canada where no one's left behind. And often people on the island have been left behind by conservatives and liberals who've been in power in this country. And so New Democrats have made it our priority to make sure the island is not left behind. And so we hear from people and we put the choice to Canadians. We put the choice to Islanders that we can build on the progress we've made, or conservatives who want to take away from that, cut the things that you need, or liberals who have really been out of touch and things have gotten worse over the past number of years.
So what are some of the specific measures you're trumpeting to that end?
So we've talked about some of the ways that we can make life better for people. What we've done so far is we brought in childcare legislation to make the childcare funding permanent. That helps out a family when you've had to deal with the cost of childcare. Knowing that there's going to be permanent funding to make sure it's more affordable really takes a lot of weight off the shoulders of parents. It saves families money. And on International Women's Day, and I want to wish everyone a happy International Women's Day, it's also really poignant that often women are the ones that are left with the childcare of their children. And so having affordable childcare directly impacts the lives of women. We fought for pharmacare, which is going to save families money. We're going to make free diabetes and free diabetes medication and devices across this country available. That's something that's going to save people money, improve our healthcare system, take BC's free birth control and take that across the country as well. And we also fought for a dental care program that's going to give people better access to dental care, improve their health, save them money. These are things that are going to make people's lives better. We also know we've got to take on housing and the cost of groceries. On those two fronts, we know corporate greed is driving up the cost of housing and groceries. Corporate landlords are scooping up affordable homes at a record rate, and corporate grocery stores are jacking up the price of their groceries. We're the only party calling that out.
I want to ask you a few specifics about some of the logistics around pharmacare. Bill C-64. So there are a number of timelines in the legislation to the effect of 1 year after the bill receives royal assent. There will be a national bulk purchasing strategy. How do those timelines translate into, I am a Canadian, I have diabetes, I get my medication covered by this plan? When is that possible for that to be happening?
It can happen as soon as possible. With the specific classes of medication, it doesn't have to wait a year at all. It could be months. We can get provinces signed up very quickly. In fact, in the legislation, we included that the government could start negotiating with provinces immediately. So there's no reason to delay. We could see provinces accept the program and have people get free diabetes and medical devices very, very soon.
When do you see the legislation itself receiving royal assent?
So the legislation is something that's been tabled March 1st. And so we are going to push for it to be passed as quick as possible as well. With everything with the Liberals, we've had to force them to do things. Just in case folks have this idea that it's been this kind of gentleman's agreement, it's been a battle. We've had to fight them. We've had to force them. Many times they've been wanting to renege on their promises. So this is a effort that Lisa Marie Barron, as your local member of parliament, myself as a national leader, we've been pushing and fighting and pressuring them. So we're going to do the same to pass this legislation also as quickly as possible.
And Lisa Marie Barron, you're here in the booth as well. Thank you very much for coming down. I want to talk about recently you had a parliamentary motion for a citizens' assembly on electoral reform. Can you tell me what you took away from that experience?
Yeah, so happy to be here and so happy that Jagmeet Singh is able to be here with us today as well in Nanaimo and talking to people today. So, it was such an amazing experience to be able to bring forward what Canadians are asking for across the country, what people in Nanaimo-Ladysmith are asking for, which is strengthening our democracy and increasing representation in the House of Commons. And so it was just such an honor to be able to bring those voices to Parliament to put forward a motion calling on the government to implement a National Citizens Assembly on electoral reform. And, we did see some really optimistic things that occurred as a result. We saw debate happen around electoral reform. We saw all parties or members of Parliament from all parties voting in favor of a move in this direction. Now, unfortunately, we did see the Liberals and Conservatives come together to vote down this motion. But I do remain optimistic that this is a positive step in the right direction, that this it reignited the fire in Canadians to bring up how important it is that we move forward with this and to ensure that we have a government that's following through. Just one last thing around that. I mean, it's more important now more than ever that we are seeing movement on electoral reform. We're in a climate crisis where there's a lack of affordable housing. People are struggling to keep food on the table. We need to have the systems in place. We need to have people elected into government that represent our communities so that decisions can be made in an effective, timely manner and to see decisions being made that benefit Canadians. And this is the path forward that I'll keep pushing regardless of the outcome of the motion.
And on timelines and going back to pharmacare, is that something that you see a realistic possibility of it being implemented before the next federal election, whenever that may come?
Pharmacare?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. We want to see it happen this year. We want to see it happen as soon as possible. We know that the Liberals have long sided with Big Pharma. Big Pharma doesn't want to see a universal single-payer pharmacare because it would mean better prices for people and less profits for them. We know the Conservatives are also very cozy with big corporations. So both of those parties don't want to do this. We do, and we're going to keep on pushing. But we're confident we can get some serious action this year, and we can get provinces signed on. We can get the bill passed. So I'm very hopeful.
And speaking of the next federal election, taking a look at the polls we see across the board, them projecting Conservatives in first place with around 40% support. How do you as a party differentiate yourselves from the current government with folks who might be unhappy with the current government?
Well, we understand why people would be frustrated with the government because we're frustrated with the government. I don't think anyone has had a closer look at what the federal government could do, what the Liberals could do than me and my team. We have seen them up close, and we could tell you they could be doing so much more on every front. They have so much power. And I would say to Canadians, anything that has come out of the federal government in the past 2 years has been because of New Democrats. We have forced them to bring in legislation to make childcare permanent. We forced them to bring in dental care that's going to save millions of people money. It's going to improve the health of seniors and kids and people living with disabilities. And we forced them to move forward on pharmacare. Like, we made these things happen. And then I would say with Poilievre, I know who he is. I've seen him up close. I can tell you who he is. He is someone who has had dental care paid for by the taxpayers for his entire adult life, who voted against your parents and your grandparents getting dental care. He had it for himself. He doesn't want it for your kids. He is someone that in a food crisis, when people are having a hard time buying groceries, voted against a school lunch program in December, just a couple months ago, where we announced just 2 days ago in Courtenay that we are demanding a national school lunch program to be funded by the federal government to build on the work of the BC NDP to make sure every single kid in our country, when they go to school, they don't have to worry about having a clean, nutritious meal. And their parents, that's one thing you can take off their plate. Parents have to worry about so many things. Let's make sure parents don't have to worry about their kids getting a good meal at school. That's something we're demanding, we're pushing for. The Liberals promised it in 2019, but they also promised pharmacare 30 years ago. So we don't think they're going to follow through unless we force them to do it. So we launched that here on the island.
So it's been widely reported over the last couple of years that this supply and confidence agreement to keep the government going was based on dental care and pharmacare. Now that we've seen some progress on those two fronts, how should people think of the future of this current government and what it comes to the NDP's support for motion to motion or the budget or what have you?
So I would say if you look at our history as a party, we have always used our power for people. Anytime New Democrats have been in a position of power, we have used it to make people's lives better. Think about the universal health care that we have under Tommy Douglas when he was in a minority government, or even things that people don't often think about, but our EI, our CPP, our old age security, these are all things that New Democrats fought for. Stephen Lewis, Jack Layton. Anytime we were in minority governments, New Democrats fought for people. And so that's what we're doing. We're in a minority government now, and we want to use the power we have to force this government that's out of touch, the Liberals who don't realize what people are going through, force them to do more for people. Unlike the Conservatives who just want to make noise in a corner, we went to Ottawa to make life better. Lisa Marie Barron went to Ottawa to make life better for the people of Nanaimo-Ladysmith. And that's what we're doing. We're delivering on it. And once we've squeezed out as much as we can for people, then we're running to form government. I'm running to become the next prime minister.
Do you see that message translating? I'm just curious, what's your reaction to seeing the polls and seeing what feels like this narrative of Canada is broken and something drastic needs to change to fix it?
Well, I know that's something that Pierre Poilievre wants to talk about, Canada being broken. I talk about Canada being an incredible place that we can make even better. I look at the progress we have made. He wants to ignore the fact that we were able to bring in dental care that's going to cover 9 million Canadians, that our seniors that have been living with pain in their teeth, pain in their mouths, are going to be able to get dental care, that women and people living with diabetes are going to get free birth control and free diabetes medication. We made that happen. We were able to bring in childcare legislation that makes that childcare funding permanent. Pierre Poilievre doesn't want to talk about those things because for him, his goal is nothing other than power. He doesn't want to make people's lives better. He has an opportunity to do that in this minority government, but he hasn't. And I'm confident I can put to people the choice. We've seen the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre when they were in power. If you care about housing, when they were in power, they sold off 800,000 affordable homes to rich corporate landlords, and we lost those affordable homes. When they were in power, the cost of housing went up, the cost of rent went up. When they were in power, they gave billions of dollars in tax giveaways to rich corporations that took the money and then left the country. We know their track record. People remember the Harper years, and I'm going to remind them.
Midcoast Morning. We'll be right back.
Midcoast Morning is made possible by the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Support Midcoast Morning and CHLY's nonprofit newsroom today by becoming a sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate. Local news can't survive without your support. Another way to help us out is to share this show with your friends and tell them why they should support us. Finally, if you're listening to the podcast edition of Midcoast Morning, go and give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast feed you use. It helps people find us.
Today on the show, we're hearing a conversation with federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and Nanaimo-Ladysmith MP Lisa Marie Barron. Singh was in Nanaimo on Friday as part of a recent tour of Vancouver Island. I also wanted to make sure to get in a question about something that I know you have written about in the past, Lisa Marie Barron. This week, Nanaimo City Council unanimously passed a motion calling on the federal and provincial governments to work together to protect Harewood Plains, which is an ecosystem here around Nanaimo. Notably, it's home to this endangered species. The majority of where it lives in Canada is on this site. There's been a subdivision application. And so City Council passed this motion. The mayor went out of his way to say this is really the federal government's job to protect these. And he called on people of Nanaimo to, if they'd sent 500 emails to him and to council, to make sure to send those to the MP. So first of all, I want to ask, have you been hearing from people in Nanaimo about this issue? And what is the path to seeing federal action on it?
Yeah, so absolutely. I'm trying to think. I think it was November. I sat down with Paul Chapman, the executive director of Nanaimo Area Land Trust, and talked about the great importance of us protecting Harewood Plains. Now, I did get, I brought together Laurel Collins, the critic of environment, and Richard Cannings, both members of Parliament of the NDP, and addressed this issue with them. And we put together a letter to the Minister of Environment Environment, Minister Guilbeault, calling on the federal government to address that there is a species at risk on this plot of land. Now more than ever, we need to be protecting not just species at risk, but the incredible biodiversity of our environment. And so this is something that I have been calling out since before even November. This is a very important issue, but also looking at having that balance of clearly Nanaimo's lacking in affordable homes. So making sure that we are looking at a true plan to implement not just more unaffordable mansions that nobody can afford to buy, but getting creative and making sure that the federal government is prioritizing public housing. They used to invest in public housing and have not been co-op housing. There's so much work that needs to be done to ensure that people in Nanaimo are accessing truly affordable housing. So it is a balance there, but us putting developments on fragile ecosystems that we are dependent on for the survival of our planet is not the way forward. And so this is definitely an issue that I'm taking seriously, and I'm going to continue to push on the federal government.
What is the path to see the federal government do something about that?
Yeah, so I received a response back from Minister Guilbeault, and I noticed that there was a lot of, well, we're going to look into it, and there needs to be further information, of course, from the city and the province. So it wasn't the response that I was hoping for. Also, not surprising, unfortunately. And so the path forward is that, members of the community keep reaching out, because that pressure being highlighted to the Minister of Environment that this is a priority, that the city of Nanaimo recognizes this as an issue, that constituents across Nanaimo know that this is a priority, and help apply that pressure, because I will continue to be that voice pushing for this development to not go forward on this very vital land.
And so the way for people to do that is still to write you, to write your office?
Absolutely. They can contact my office, and I can use those emails as a means to help share their voices and to push their voices in Parliament. I am more than eager to, and have sat down with the Mayor to talk about ways that we can work together to ensure that this issue is addressed at the federal level.
And Lisa Marie's brought this issue up with me, so we're going to take this issue to Ottawa. We're going to fight hard. Often we've seen the Liberals not act, and the path to making them act is to force them, to keep the pressure up. We've shown that with the dental care and the pharmacare. Both times they were trying to back away from it. We put pressure on them, and we got a win there. So on this one, we're going to keep the pressure going. People should definitely reach out and share their concerns with Lisa Marie, but we're going to take that issue as a party, as leader myself, and Lisa Marie's been really raising this with me as something important. We're going to push and fight to make sure we protect the land.
And Nanaimo in the last federal election was a particularly tight race at less than 2 percentage points separating Lisa Marie Barron and Tamara Cronus, the Conservative candidate, less than 1,500 votes. What are you going to be focusing on in the next election, which will be before the end of next year at the latest, specifically in Nanaimo as a party?
I would say the cost of living is the biggest thing that I've heard from people just kind of casually walking down the street. I know that that's something that's hurting people a lot, and they're saying we need a place to live and we need to be able to put food on the table. So food, so groceries and housing. And I want to put to people the choices they have. On groceries, we know the real and the leading reason why the cost of groceries are so high is corporate greed. We look at the dominant market share that large corporate grocery stores have in our country, and the fact that they're not just making good profits or high profits, they're making record profits. And the Competition Bureau confirms that they've increased their margins in this time, meaning they are ripping off people while people are struggling to buy their groceries. You'll never hear Pierre Poilievre talk about corporate greed. You'll never hear Trudeau talk about corporate greed. We're the only party fighting back to say, we've got to take them on. We got to stop their corporate greed. I put in a law that would put severe sanctions on any additional practices like the bread price fixing, which we saw, which would limit them from gouging consumers, from jacking up prices. So that's one thing. Second thing is on affordable homes. You'll hear Liberals and Conservatives talk about build, build, build. But as Lisa Marie was saying, build what? If you build more luxury condos, people can't afford that. If you build more luxury homes, people can't afford that. What we have to build is affordable homes. And to do that, the federal government has to be a part of it. The Conservatives are saying they're going to cut funding to invest in affordable homes and let builders do it on their own. Well, on their own, builders are going to build market homes that people cannot afford. The only way we build affordable homes is what we do. We do what we did back after the World Wars, where the federal government uses federal land, money, and power to invest and build homes that people can afford to buy or people can afford to rent. That's what we're going to do.
If I can share, Joe, I just want to mention, I can't reiterate more that this is my home. I've been here since 1995, graduated high school here. I've raised my 2 children here. And for most of that lived as a low income, a parent living in low income, and understand firsthand what it's like to struggle to make ends meet and to be able to keep food on the table. And it's just been heartbreaking to see the rise in people who are struggling to make ends meet. And I've been so proud to see the incredible work that the NDP has been able to accomplish in Parliament, to see real solutions for people in this riding. I'm in awe of the fact that there's only 25 of us and that we were able to accomplish what we have. And these are real tangible solutions for people: dental care, pharmacare, housing. There's just so many ways in which the NDP is grounded in helping people. And I want to, I can't reiterate enough how invested I am in keeping the focus on the needs of Nanaimo-Ladysmith and seeing a federal government that's implementing solutions for people right here and not for the profits of large corporations, which is a theme. Quite frankly, that I see in solutions that are being implemented by both the Liberals and Conservatives. One thing that they have in common is that they continue to line the pockets of rich CEOs. I want to see more New Democrats in government to call that out and see solutions being put into place for people. And so, regardless of how far away an election is, that's what I'm going to remain focused on, is bringing my lived experience and bringing the voices of so many who are reaching out to me into the work that we're doing to remind us why we're here. We're here to represent people. We're here to implement solutions that benefit people. And that's the work that I'll keep doing alongside Jagmeet Singh and my colleagues in the NDP in Ottawa.
Before I let you go, is there any particular thing that could cause you to go to the extent of not supporting the government, even if it means an election before 2025?
Well, I would frame it this way. We have a number of things that we're getting done. We don't want to let the Liberals off the hook. They would love to break their agreement and not deliver the rest of dental care. They would love to back out of pharmacare. We're going to hold their feet to the fire. We're going to make sure they deliver on these things. So what we're doing is forcing the government to do what they would otherwise not have done. We're forcing them to bring in things to make people's lives better. We're forcing them to take on things like corporate greed, and we're making sure people can afford their medication, they can get their dental care. We're forcing government to do things. This is a fight, and we're going to keep on fighting. There may come a time when we no longer are able to move forward, but as long as we can, our goal is to make sure we use our power to make Ottawa work for Nanaimo-Ladysmith, to make Ottawa work for people. And at a moment where we can't do that anymore, then we'll look at the next steps, which might be an election.
Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and Nanaimo-Ladysmith MP Lisa Marie Barron speaking with me Friday in the CHLY studio. During that interview, we touched on recently announced pharmacare legislation. I spoke with Cheryl Camillo on the subject. She's an associate professor of public policy at the University of Regina and an associate with the North American Observatory on Health Systems and Policies. Camillo is concerned about the possibility of provinces opting out of pharmacare.
Some of the premiers that have suggested that their provinces may opt out have referred to provincial programs that they have, but those programs don't necessarily provide coverage to everyone. So they're not universal, in other words, and they're not necessarily cost-free. Sometimes people who do participate in those programs have to pay out of pocket. So that's one concern. Another concern is that if provinces opt out or negotiate their own programs or benefits with the federal government, then there's a patchwork of different coverage across Canada. And one of the best things about the Canadian healthcare system is that coverage of hospital services as well as physician services, which we have through our provincial health cards, is pretty consistent and standard across Canada. And one of the principles enshrined in our healthcare system through the Canada Health Act is portability, meaning you can take your card, which says British Columbia, and receive hospital services in Manitoba or receive physician services in Ontario, I could do the same. If I go back and hike the rest of the Sunshine Coast Trail, which I backpacked part of last year, and God forbid I fall and need to go to the hospital or a clinic, I pull out my Saskatchewan card and I'm covered. If there is a patchwork where suddenly drug coverage or coverage of certain drugs is not portable, then it becomes very confusing. If I fall and I need an anti-inflammatory or something, is it covered in British Columbia or not? It becomes burdensome for people to understand what coverage they have and what the terms of that coverage are. And it's also burdensome for those working in the healthcare system, pharmacists, for example, to understand who receives what from what entity.
Cheryl Camillo is an associate professor of public policy at the University of Regina. That's our story for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer, and R.B. Frew is our technical advisor. You can sign up for CHLY's newsletter at chly.ca/subscribe for updates from our nonprofit newsroom. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. You can find more of their music on their Bandcamp. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, email us at news@chly.ca. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
Midcoast Morning would not be possible without the funding of the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Midcoast Morning is a project of CHLY's nonprofit newsroom. Support nonprofit journalism in Nanaimo and on the Salish Sea today by becoming a monthly sustaining donor at $5 or more per month. Support the program at chly.ca/donate. If you're already a supporter, record a voice memo telling others where you're listening from and why they too should support our work. After you're done, you can email it to us. Also, share the podcast with your friends. While Meta is blocking Canadian users from sharing news content on their Facebook feeds, you can still share our podcast directly with your friends via Facebook or Instagram Messenger. Finally, this program acknowledges and gives thanks to the Snuneymuxw First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.